and welcome back to AWS On Air, coming at you live from Remars. I'm Steve Roberts, developer advocate for .NET and PowerShell, and with me is AM, who is frantically recovering from that last Code Corner demo.
It took so much out of me, Steve. I'll never recover.
You'll get there. You'll get there. I'm so proud of you for that PowerShell. It's awesome.
I'm AM Grabelli. I'm a solutions architect here at AWS, and frequent co-host with Steve here.
So for this session, we're joined by Vanitha and Leo. Please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Vanitha Sugumaran, Solutions Architecture Manager for here at AWS. And my team and I help EdTech customers such as Coursera, Pearson, Instruction, Anthology, customers like that. We help them migrate to AWS as well as innovate in AWS. Leo and I are excited to be here to talk about how AI ML, how our customers are using AI ML to transform education.
Yeah, and I'm Leo Janovski. I'm the Chief Technologist for Education here at AWS. And so what I do is I work with our higher education, EdTech, publisher, and K-12 customers, and I help them whenever they have a big mission-critical launch that can go wrong. I help them succeed there and pull in all the right teams that we need to pull in from inside of AWS. And I also work with our service teams to make sure that what they're building is what our education customers need.
Now, Leo, we got to meet you in DC. DC Summit. And I told you then, and I'll tell you now again for our new viewers and for Vanitha as well, this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I am a former teacher.
Awesome.
My whole family, my sister, my mother, all work in education as well.
Excellent.
So I have to ask on their behalf, what are you doing to help educators? What is AWS doing to make education better?
Excellent. So we do have a slide we are sharing here. Here's an overview of type of problems that AI and ML are being used to solve in education. Okay. The slide doesn't show every use case, but it gives you an idea of the major areas that we are working with our customers. So for example, machine learning can help education institutions identify prospective students, what is the right good fit for them, and who's most likely to enroll in a program too. So this way, the education institutions can reach out to those students in a more personalized way, and it can increase their engagement as well. Right. And also the other area that we see a lot of discussions are around is the learning content and personalization of that learning content, which we're going to dive deep a little bit later.
Yeah, so one huge challenge in education is helping ensure that students actually succeed, right? And oftentimes that requires first identifying the students that are struggling. And so a lot of our EdTech customers, they are looking to using machine learning, already using machine learning to identify students that are at risk faster through things like data they have from assessments and other systems that they run. And so that way they can intervene sooner and have a better probability of successful intervention. Another area in education that we see is research teams outside of just like your computer science department, applying machine learning to a wide range of research problems. And however, the problem is that frequently these teams, they lack deep data science backgrounds, ML backgrounds, and DevOps expertise, which makes it harder for them to succeed with ML. And so we have a service called AWS SageMaker, and so SageMaker helps make each stage of that easier. So it helps them spend less time on managing ML infrastructure and more time on getting value out of their data. And then lastly, many of our customers, so whether these are students or professors at universities, they're starting on their machine learning journey. And so over time, they're looking to apply machine learning across all aspects of their organization and also to build a foundation of data. And so this actually also applies to our EdTech customers as well. And so they can leverage machine learning and generate predictions and insights to help improve student outcomes and drive operational excellence and innovation.
I love that. I mean, across the board, I'd say we're asking our teachers to do more with less. And that's been the case, I think, since teaching has been a profession, right? And I'd say the most precious resource, I would guess, for most teachers, for me when I was a teacher, is time. And all of these things on this slide take time, right?
Yes.
And so anything that can give me time back to focus in more on basically educating, right, which is the main goal, I love it. And that's great.
And I think it's gotten even more complicated with remote learning and hybrid learning.
Yeah.
Because like I have someone in my family who's a teacher, and she has to both teach her in-person class and over Zoom at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine doing that. That seems super tough. Yeah.
So you mentioned personalization a couple of times. So how does that help? Is there an example you can share with us?
Yeah, definitely. So personalization is incredibly powerful when it comes to having learners actually identify, discover content. So Amazon has been a leader in personalization for over 20 years in using personalization in Amazon.com. So we do have a managed service called Personalization, Amazon Personalize, which I heard like Liam talk about that in the earlier session too. So we do have Amazon Personalize, which has AI ML powered personalization capabilities. So what our EdTechs do is they use Amazon Personalize to tailor the learning content and also the learning experiences based on students' strengths and weaknesses. So that's how some of the EdTechs are now using.
Cool. And then
yeah, and also like I can share a couple of examples here. Skillshare, I don't know if you have used Skillshare, but they are the largest global online learning community for creativity. So they do use Personalized to recommend classes for their users. And we recently worked with Discovery Ed comes to the teachers here. Discovery Ed worked with them to leverage personalization to make it easier for teachers to find content in their large content libraries.
That's one of the massive problems facing, I'd say, not just educators, but broadly, I'd say, even our industry in tech, like keeping up, learning.
Yes.
There's so much content out there. We're generating some right now as we speak.
Yes.
How do I find it, right? How do I actually connect with it? How do I sort through all of the things and find what's most relevant to me?
Yeah.
That's a huge problem facing students, right? Who
absolutely.
don't have necessarily the background or critical thinking yet, and they're developing it, right, throughout their education, to go and look and find, like, oh, I know I'm not doing too hot at math, right? How do I find stuff that will help me with math?
Right.
There's hundreds of thousands of places to go.
Yeah.
Right?
That sounds very familiar in my case.
Does it? I hit a nerve.
So, in addition to personalization, I think another really powerful tool that we should talk about is Amazon Kendra, and it helps people find kind of what they're looking for using natural language search. So I remember a long time ago when I first started, using the internet. There's, Alta Vista and all these other Yahoo and Excite, all these search engines, and you have to learn like different syntax for all of them, like all plus and quote, and how to get results out of them. And with Kendra, you don't have to do that. You can just ask it a question like you would ask a human, and it'd give you a result that makes sense. And another thing that we're seeing our education customers use is Amazon Transcribe, which you talked about.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we just showed that.
Yeah, exactly. So as you talked about, it's a service that makes it easier to convert speech to text, right? So we have one of our customers, Echo 360. They basically provide active and distance learning solutions, right?
Right.
And so they're using Transcribe to generate subtitles and transcripts for online video. And that's really convenient, but also from an accessibility point of view, it's making their content more inclusive, right? Because can't assume everybody can consume audio, for example.
Yeah, exactly. We have so many different learners out there. That's even another point too. Like when I was first getting into teaching, it was huge about differentiated learning, right? And not necessarily just for accessibility. Accessibility is a big part of that, but differentiated learning in terms of like some people might connect with spoken. Some people might connect better with like printed text that they could read at their own pace, not have to keep up with. So I think that's massively important too. That's cool.
Yep, absolutely.
What about, you mentioned earlier, Leo and Vanitha, student retention, right? That's keeping a student engaged when they're at risk of missing. What are some ways that machine learning helps identify those risks and address them?
Yeah, so machine learning is very useful for taking large amount of data and then identifying patterns that are very hard for a human to spot, right? So what our EdTech customers are doing is they are taking data from student information systems, learning management systems, and any other applications, and to create more accurate and timely reports or predictions of students that are at risk. They don't just stop at predicting that, but they also tailor like learning content so that we could continue to keep the students on the path to success as well. So that's how we are seeing some of the edtechs using.
Yeah, and a typical machine learning project for these edtechs involves 3 key components, right, which help them solve a typical ML problem. So the first is you identify the data, right, that might be predictive of student success, and then figure out how do you extract it from different systems. They might have different sources of information, and then you want to do some ETL or prepare it to be, amenable to use in ML. And then the second step is to build, train, and deploy a model. And so this is often highly iterative, and it's often difficult to know which approach is right up front. So you have to be able to try different approaches, evaluate the results, and keep refining it. And then the last step, which is super important, is to actually get value and some use out of that data. So you have to figure out how you can provide predictions and insights to the business user of that system. And so it's super important that they understand like why a prediction is made, what is the prediction, and so explainability and transparency are huge areas in ML research right now. The good news is we have services that allow our customers to focus on getting value out of their data like this, instead of spending large amounts of time and money on undifferentiated heavy lifting of having to like set up all the underlying infrastructure to do it. So for example, SageMaker Studio allows data scientists to dive right in and provides them a full IDE to build, train, and deploy their models. And then this one I really love is if you want to get your feet wet, check out SageMaker Studio Labs, right? So it's free, which is always great.
That's always good.
Always
You
good.
you don't even need an AWS account. You can go log in, and within minutes you have access to the IDE, and you can start doing stuff immediately. And so it's great for just experimenting in general.
If it's free, it's for me.
Yeah, and just as an example, is like we have this is our AI ML stack, so I could spend hours or days talking about all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so we have some researchers, some EdTech customers who want a specific thing. They want access to GPUs or specific types of frameworks and workflows. They're going to run an EC2, and they can do that. But the nice thing is if you don't really want to be an expert in this low-level stuff, you can just use SageMaker, SageMaker Studio, SageMaker Studio Labs to get started quickly.
Okay. So obviously, I mean, personal assistants are getting ever more popular these days, right? I have a bunch of Alexa devices at home, right? I've always wondered, could I get my assignment answers from like Alexa, right? I mean, is there a role for like chatbots and voice assistants in education?
Absolutely. So Steve, did you go to the tech show?
Very briefly, when we were trying to find where the AWS On Air studio was.
Yeah, we got lost.
Oh,
But
okay.
it was a nice detour.
So Leo and I, last night, we walked through the tech show, and there is an area where smart home is displayed. It's powered by Alexa. Like, it's amazing to see. You can turn on your lights, you can water your plants, and coffee maker, and all of that. So we were talking about...
That was the
wouldn't
full
it be,
house that was
that was
there,
like
right?
a full house.
There's a car.
And a car,
Okay.
exactly.
And there's a greenhouse in the backyard.
Too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we were thinking, as we were walking through and looking at what would be a smart school look like?
Oh, wow.
Can you think of that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So some examples are, that would make AI and chatbots great tools for student success and engagement are, for example, being able to respond faster to a request when somebody needs it, because there aren't enough humans to provide all the help and responses that are needed. So as an example, imagine you have a student reaches out to help desk at 1 a.m. on a Saturday because their Wi-Fi's down in their dorm. Maybe their help desk isn't staffed 24/7, and you can have a chatbot say, "Oh yeah, we know, we looked at the status page and we know there's an outage and it'll be back in 2 hours." Or what about a virtual tutor that helps answer a question in the context of a specific class? Or an agent for a library. So you can talk to a chatbot and I want this textbook. Is it in circulation? Where is it? Where can I get it? So as we move to more online learning engagement, it's super important to help students succeed. And while conversational AI doesn't replace human mentors and coaches and instructors, it can help augment the amount of engagement and help a student access information in a way that helps them be more successful.
I probably would have found a chatbot approach really useful at school, because I was always very reluctant to approach a teacher.
Yeah.
Just generally, but just to ask for something that seems brutally obvious, right?
I would have found it useful as a teacher to answer the 50th time, what's the homework for tonight? Ask the chatbot.
Yeah. And so we actually have EdTech customers such as Pearson and Instructure who've built Alexa skills, for example, that allow students to access their applications to get information like that, like when's the next quiz, through a voice interface. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was from an accessibility perspective. So the guide dogs for the Blind Association, they made an Alexa skill for visually impaired users to ask Alexa questions about their guide dogs. Typically, this was done in manuals that were in Braille that had to be printed, and now they don't need that. So it empowers these folks to live actively and independently because of chatbots.
I love that story, Leo. We got about 10 seconds. I wanted to thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you again.
Yeah.
We will be right back with more content here on AWS On Air. Stick around.